everybody. Welcome to the Dad Challenge podcast. My name is Josh, and you're here for Ministry Mondays. Today, I'm pissed. I'm not going to lie. Today is one of those days where if I was still like a, church-believing guy that was involved in the church and, gung-ho, like drinking the Kool-Aid like I was before I got fired, I would be probably on this guy's side. But ever since my departure from church and my post-Christian walk and my deconstruction path I'm taking for my faith and all that stuff, I'm starting to realize how crazy a lot of us looked to the rest of the world. And how that we just believe that we're doing this because God wants us to do this stuff. I'm talking about right now Bethel again. Bethel just screams shitbags to me. Something is wrong with that church. Something is going crazy. And today we're going to talk about Sean Feucht. So Sean Feucht, if you didn't know who he is a worship pastor from Bethel who has started this movement. He calls himself a husband, a father, recording artist, author, founder of multiple movements, lover of Jesus Christ. The last thing is everything and then Jesus, right? I have books, CDs, albums, producing. I do all these movements. Oh, and I love Jesus. That's a passing side note. And we're going to get into this in another video. I definitely can't wait to do a video about famous Christians who are famous because they're Christians, because they work at large churches. He has a movement, I guess, and so it's called Hold the Line. And Hold the Line is a political activist movement. Our goal is to engage with the church and with millennials in a way that charges them to become more politically active. There's a couple problems with this right off the top. He's a pastor of a church that's nonprofit. Churches are not supposed to be getting involved in political things at all. Like that's a one quick way to lose your status. This is why church separation, church and state was one of the biggest things in the past 100 years. He is representing Bethel and has a political movement, an activist movement right now, where he goes around the country and has worship events like this.
Hey guys.
I love how he's like, oh, is it recording? Okay, let's walk.
We're here in Atlanta, and we had a little venue change last minute. We were supposed to be in Piedmont Park, and we had to shift to this epic warehouse. What we did not know is that right across the street...
I just want to point out that this guy's a pastor, a worship pastor, and he's got security at a door and a place where his band goes to rehearse and stuff. You can't get around the idea that these guys are just rock stars posing as Jesus lovers. They make a lot of money doing what they're doing. This guy is making tons of money. He's rising his own fame and star off the backs of this political movement, and he's become one of the most noticeable, recognizable worship leaders in the world. Nobody knew who this guy was before he started doing maskless worship concerts. Okay? His ramen noodle hairdo and his dumbass smile on his face. This guy is probably responsible for multiple hundreds of deaths, if not super spreader events. And he's like, hey, everybody, I'm so happy we're doing this. Look, guys, you know me. I'm one for let's get back to the world, right? But at the same time, I'm going to wear my mask. I'm going to follow the rules and the laws and the bylaws put in place so that people feel comfortable. I'm not going to be a complete asshole to my neighbors and people around me, because there are people who can die from this. And so, but I say all that to say that this effing arsehole is standing on the platform of being someone who represents Jesus and is out there in these events, massive events, super spreader events with nobody wearing masks, as a political movement. Not a movement for God, a political movement for God. I want to ask you a question, Sean Feucht, you douchebag. If Jesus were here right now, would Jesus wear a mask? He absolutely would wear a mask. You know why he would wear a mask? Because he loves people. Because he understood the importance of loving people where they are. We are in a pandemic. And you guys just are walking around in these worship conferences and these concerts at these places you have to keep moving. Because why? This tweet right here sums up everything. Kylie Beach writes this. Vulnerable people are going to die because you don't have the spiritual depth to reimagine worship, nor the depth of character to resist an opportunity for self-promotion. Sean Feucht, you need to get to a burn unit ASAP. This person has destroyed your character and has laid it all out there in one tiny little tweet. The most sufficient tweet I have ever seen destroy somebody. Kylie Beach, if you're listening, that tweet that you wrote sets this whole movement for Sean Feucht right into perspective. Sean Feucht and Bethel and people who are out there trying to do church, because look, I get it that the government is saying you can't have church, and people feel like the government is coming after church, saying you can't have church. The government is not saying you can't have church, everybody. Every single church I've known has gone online. There's not just because you can't go to a brick and mortar building doesn't mean you can't worship God. Doesn't mean you can't understand and learn about God. Doesn't mean you can't worship him with music. This is the most ridiculous, ludicrous thing I've ever heard in my life, that this guy has started this movement saying, well, you're not going to stop us from going out and worshiping God. Just this line here that she says, you don't have the spiritual depth to reimagine worship. These people, Bethel, Hillsong, Elevation, all these big giant churches, have unlimited funds and have some of the highest quality, most produced videos for worship that you can find online. We're talking $100,000 cameras, multiples of them at live events that are pre-recorded anyway, and then they're re-recorded and then released. But you do not have to go to an in-person event to worship. You can wait. You can worship God in your basement with acoustic guitar. Bring a friend over in your backyard. Do whatever it is. These concerts are utter bullshit. Okay? Have you ever been to a worship conference like I have, and they're amazing? Don't get me wrong. There's times I've been, and I'm glad I've gone, and I get the power. Look, there's a couple of things that are going to be where I'm going to be wrestle with this, because I've been to worship conferences and concerts and stuff like that, and I know the power they have. I know the freedom of worship and yelling, screaming, and all this stuff, and the heart and the movements and the music engulfing your body and all this stuff. I do understand why people love going to those. What you need to do as a Christian, if you're a Christian, going to these concerts, is you need to realize the absolute and utter failure you are putting out there, and this message that you're putting out there, that you just don't give a shit about anybody but yourself. And you're saying it as a Jesus follower, like Jesus wants you to do that. You're telling people that Jesus wants you to go out into a super spreader event without a mask, singing and dancing and sweating and putting out particles of COVID everywhere to like 9,000, 10,000 people at these events. And you're saying Jesus wants you to do that. If you can't see that in that perspective of what the world is seeing right now, you are an utter failure of a follower of Jesus. Because the whole point of being a follower of Jesus is to live a life where people are like, hey, I love how they're living. What is it that they have that I don't have? And that thing is usually Jesus. That thing is, I think you're really cool, and you're nice to people. You treat people right. You love people even though they don't deserve to be loved. You do all these things. What is it that you have? I have Jesus. That's what they say. This is the opposite of that. You have a political movement out there where you're unwilling to reimagine worship because of your own fucking ego and your pursuit of fame. And you don't have the depth of character, because again, the next line that she says, nor do you have the depth of character to resist an opportunity for self-promotion. This is not a movement for Jesus. This is a movement for Sean Feucht. Let's not get it twisted. The guy's on camera every day. He's tweeting out every single day. He's loving the attention and the money that he's making from this. This is not about Jesus, everybody. This is the opposite about Jesus. This is about Sean Feucht making Sean Feucht a lot of money. That's all this is. He became the most prolific worship leader in the last month or two because he started this movement. He had the balls enough to get out there and defy the world and defy a pandemic and defy the government because the government shut down church. Churches in my area are allowed to get back. They are, and they still aren't. You know why? It's because they don't want to fucking kill people. That's why. They understand that a lot of the vulnerable population, the older people that are older and can die from COVID, they're the ones who actually go to church. And they're not going. And they probably would if the church opened their doors, but a lot of churches are still not opening their doors, even though they can, because churches are being responsible. For those churches out there who are being responsible, thank you. Sean Feucht, thank you. You son of a bitch, you asshole. From one worship pastor, ex-pastor, to another, you're wrong in every single way of what you're doing when you're doing these super spreader events. You are so wrong in what you're doing. And the fact that these churches like Bethel, Elevation, I'm going to go back to that, have unlimited funds. You can reimagine worship to make it so powerful online, you can literally change the face of worship if you wanted to. But you guys refuse to. You need to be in person in your skinny jeans and your clothes and your t-shirts and your ramen noodle hairdos and your guitars and your instruments and your bands, and you tour with everybody and you get off your tour bus and you go to the next place and you got handlers and you get food and you literally are living a rock star life, but you're saying I'm doing this for Jesus. And you're putting so much money in your pocket doing this. Look, I'm all for getting paid. Do what you got to do. But not off killing people. This is where this has to stop. And then he's connecting with Pence, and he's doing all these things. He's like, I'm happy to, this, you cannot have a worship conference and a worship concert that is politically motivated and say it's about Jesus. It's politically motivated. But every one of you there singing hymns and doing things as a Christian, I hope that you understand. The rest of the world is watching you, and now they are hating you more. And by association, they're now hating the church and Jesus more because you're representing Jesus. And if you don't see that, you're being blinded by Bethel's unbelievably bad theology. Bethel is going to have a lot to answer for after this pandemic. If one person dies because one of these events, I'm sure it's already happened, to be honest with you. That's on you, Sean Feucht. That's on you, Bethel. And you talk about being, this place of healing and all that stuff. One of the biggest things about this thing is that Bethel's all about healing and all this stuff and they're all confident that God's going to raise people from the dead and do all this stuff, and they do grave soaking and do all this craziness. And yet your school of supernatural worship has a huge pandemic issue itself and has over 130 students that have been diagnosed with COVID, and you just continue to go on. It's like you don't see it. You're like, oh well, it's COVID, sure, it's pandemic, but we're just going to continue on and let's be super dumb about this. I am so upset that Bethel's doing this, that they are so selfish. Sean Feucht and your band, everybody who plays for Sean Feucht too. Those guys up there playing the guitars, or the $15,000 guitars and pedal boards and the drums and everything else. You too. You guys are literally making Jesus look bad, even though that's really hard because Jesus can do anything. But you're out there representing Christ in a political movement against a pandemic that has no partisan lie. The pandemic doesn't care if you're a Christian, Republican, Democrat. The pandemic is killing people. And look, even if you did a concert and said encourage people to wear masks, then maybe they can come after you so much. But you don't. You actually encourage people not to wear masks. I don't understand this. Are you fucking stupid? Do you not understand what a pandemic is? Look, we still live on Earth. There's still things that happen on Earth, okay? There are still tons of things that happen here. And just ignoring a pandemic doesn't mean that it's not there. It doesn't, do you think, honestly, I ask you this question, anybody who goes to these concerts, who goes to Bethel, do you honestly believe that Jesus would be at one of these events? Do you believe that Jesus would wear a mask? Do you believe that Jesus would tell you to forget about a pandemic? Do you believe he would be part of a political movement like this? He absolutely would not. You're the place where Jesus is coming to upturn the tables. Is what's wrong right now. You're the temple right now. Selling your wares inside the temple is what you're doing right now, Sean Feucht and Bethel. You're selling your wares in the temple. You're making money, profiting, and becoming famous off the church. And saying it's about Jesus when it's absolutely about you. I understand the other side of this too. Let me play devil's advocate. When you allow BLM protests and all this stuff to go on and don't say anything about it, then you start up a movement like this. So there's partly to be blamed for the media and everybody else allowing these other protesters to do whatever the hell they please and saying that that's good, that's for social justice. But they're ignoring the pandemic as well. And so when you let that happen without being fair to the other side, where if they want to do an outdoor church service, whatever it is, what did you expect? Now they have a political movement, and they're going to do it, and BLM has given them an excuse now in their protests to do this protest. So, well, this is our peaceful protest. And so it's hypocritical on both sides because the mainstream media said this is good, this is allowable, no problem. Didn't talk about the hundreds of thousands of people marching, not wearing masks, spreading it, and yelling in people's faces, right? And so when they do this, now they're up in arms? You can't. That's the problem. You're not allowed to be a hypocrite in both ways. You got to choose one. Either everybody kind of buckles down, gets this thing under control, or let everybody get back to the world. But the political movement on the back of Jesus, on the back of the church, to line your own pockets and for self-promotion and fame is utter bullshit. So take away the Black Lives Matter and the protests and everything else. I'm just saying, that's what started this movement. So, but let's put that aside because as Christians, we have a responsibility to represent Christ. We have a responsibility to represent Christ in a world of a pandemic right now. And you know what that responsibility is? It's to love your neighbor and those around us who are sick and who could die from this, which means being responsible, which means, hey, you could listen to any message you want by Bill Johnson if you like Bill Johnson, which is, I don't know why you would, by just going online and listening. Nobody is stopping the word of God from getting out. If anything, it's actually more accessible than it's ever been because of social media. More accessible than it has ever been. At a moment, if I want to listen to a message by like Francis Chan, boom, I got it right here. I got it right here. Nothing is stopping people from getting together and worshiping Jesus. Nothing is stopping you. But when you do super spreader events where everybody's tightly together, singing, particles everywhere, that's on you, Sean Feucht. And these people going to these concerts, millennials that are going to this concert, how fucking stupid can you be? You're the problem. You're the reason why the left hates the right so badly, because you represent Republicans. Because you're out there with your frickin' ramen noodle hairdo and your shitty music, putting it out there with your band and self-promoting. That's all you're doing here, Sean Feucht. That's all you're doing. You pop out on Twitter for 2 seconds, and when Sean Feucht is in, and I'm on his pinned tweet right now. There's a friggin' video of, what's his face? Michael W. Smith. Crackhead Michael W. Smith. Let's not get it twisted. Michael W. Smith is a cokehead. Was a cokehead. You know, this is going to be part of the video I do about Christian musicians and Christian music in general. But no Christian musician out there is actually living the way that they sing. It's just the way it is. And I was part of the industry for 10 years. I toured. I saw that behind the scenes. Michael W. Smith is out here without a mask, playing this piano in front of everybody. The biggest hypocrite in the world. Out here, let's spread COVID, super spreader events. Unbelievable. Anyway, you go to Sean Feucht's thing. He's got I Exalt Thee downtown Nashville. Okay, 6.8 thousand views. There's Sean Feucht has a tweet that says, here, I'm going to screenshot it for you. He says, a police officer escorting me out tonight said he estimated 9,000 to 10,000 worshipers filled the courthouse steps in downtown Nashville. We had 3 venue changes and so much resistance, but the church will not be silenced. The church isn't being silenced, you asshole. It's not being silenced at all. Explain to me how the church is being silenced? Because you can't go to their building and tithe in their tithing pots? How is a church being silenced? Every church has gone online. You can access every message, every song, and these stupid dumbass dances they do on the stage right now. You can access all of that on YouTube and you can have it at your will. You can replay it a million times. You can enjoy the same thing. You can have it. This is not silencing the church. That is a lie. That is the problem. He's lying to you. The church isn't being silenced. Is he being silenced? Nope, because look at the platform he's got right now. So you go into the comments just for 2 seconds. You know, Blair Erskine is so funny. She made a video about this and she's actually hilarious, but she's against this and she's like, what PacSun hurt you? Everybody here is just, he's being ratioed like mass. And so look, I get it that, you know, people who say Christians will be, God said that Christians are going to be persecuted. And yeah, we are, fine. I get it. This isn't persecution. You have a responsibility to your massive amount of followers to look at your comments of people who hate you. People calling you a suicide cult. And everybody is calling you out. Look at Luke Barnett wrote, bro, you're crushing the COVID game. Literally no one is spreading viruses like you. Praise be to he. Like, look at the message you're putting out. That's what I'm saying. The message is to your maybe 9,000 people that are at this worship conference. You know, maybe, let's say 25,000 people agree with you. But you have 350 million people in the US, and you have this tiny little pact, and you put yourself in this echo chamber where you think what you're doing is right because you surround yourself with people who think. Look, we already know that Bill Johnson and Bethel always will subscribe to the thing that puts them in the forefront of culture, right? They're always going to be, we're going to support this. We're going to raise Olive from the dead. We're going to support that. You know, it never happened. Bethel's shit never comes to fruition. It's all faked. Everything Bethel does is fake. Every single thing Bethel does is fake. Angel feathers, gold dust, grave soaking, healing, all of it's fake. All of it brings tons of money to them. Redding, California is on fire right now politically because most of the people running for office go to the church. It's at this point, it's cult levels. This is at cult levels. Think about this for a second, okay? This is why it's cult levels. They run a town. They literally employ half the town and they have a lot of the police and politicians in their pocket. A church does, by the way, which is this should never be a thing. Second, you're running around doing concerts and bringing people to you, dumbass people, by the way, who are easily manipulated in the name of Jesus to spread COVID, which could kill people. What other cults do that? Most of them. You're drinking Bethel Kool-Aid, just like the cult where they drank the Kool-Aid and all died with the Nikes. That is what's happening right now. You become a cult and you are devoid of Jesus, but you're talking about it like it is Jesus. Like a lot of cults do. And you are doing your church a disservice. You are literally making people hate Jesus more than they might have already hated them. There's no redemption when you're out there saying, defying a pandemic that is roaming the earth and killing, in the States alone, 218,000 people. Is Trump to blame for that? No. That's so dumb that people say that too. It's not what's happening here. A pandemic is a pandemic. It came from China. It happened. For whatever reason, it's there. And yet you're sitting out here encouraging people to sing and spit in each other's faces, yell and scream, and literally dance and sweat but you're on stage, all socially distanced, by the way. Look at the picture of him on stage, socially distanced from his band. He gets to have security. He gets to be away from people. He doesn't meet with people. He has, 20 feet around him at all times. What's it going to take for this guy to learn that this is bullshit? He needs to get COVID himself. If anybody dies from one of these super spreader events, and I'm pretty sure it's already happened, it's on you, Sean Feucht. You done fuked up. Bethel, that's on you. Anybody out here watching these things, going to these events, stop going to these events. If you actually truly love Jesus, if you really do, if you believe in Jesus in your heart and you believe that he died and rose for your sins and that you are a follower of Jesus through and through, stop going to these events. You're the problem. Jesus doesn't want you to go to these events. Jesus wants you to worship him in your heart, and that could mean a million ways of doing that. And we talked about this a lot. Why don't you go buy a homeless person a pair of shoes? Okay? Why don't you go serve at a soup kitchen? Why don't you serve somewhere? Why don't you go do something for real for Jesus? All these worship events, they're for you. That's not for Jesus. You go there for your self-worship. I know what it is because I was lived that world. You go to these events, not because you're there because of Jesus. You go to meet Jesus maybe, and you go there because it makes you feel good. You don't go there because it makes anybody else feel good. And these concerts specifically don't make anybody else feel good. They actually could kill people. So when you go to these things, you're defying the laws of the land, which Jesus said, don't do. Render to Caesar what's Caesar's. You're defying the laws of the land. Okay? And so you're saying, well, BLM did it. They did it. Yeah. But you're supposed to take the high road. You're supposed to turn the other cheek. You're supposed to be the example of like, you know what? The right, but we're going to take the high road. We're going to take the road that Jesus, the less traveled. What would Jesus do here? So if you're a follower of Jesus and you truly are in your heart, stay the fuck away from Bethel. Stay the fuck away from these super spreader events and stop trying to kill people because you're making it worse. You're literally telling people that your feelings matter and your pursuit of the good times and the worship conferences and the worship concerts and all the things is more important to you than actually just being a responsible human being. Jesus would be on this earth now. He would be wearing a mask. He would not be going to these concerts. He could heal people though. Bethel can't. Where's Bethel now? You got 130 people got COVID at your school of supernatural worship. Why didn't you just heal them? You don't have faith for that? Maybe you're doing something wrong. You're not praying hard enough. It's all you. So Bethel and Sean Feucht you. I cannot believe this is what you're doing. And you're just giving people like me more excuse to hate the church every day. I love Jesus. Don't get me wrong, everybody. I do. But people like this give the church a bad name more and more and more and more and more. And eventually people are going to start waking up to this and being like, I cannot believe this. Yeah, maybe you got 9,000 people at this event down there. But you got about 400,000 more millennials who are watching your tweets and saying you guys are a bunch of effing a-holes. That's what you have. You're literally the problem. You're setting more division in politics. You're setting more division in the world instead of becoming peacemakers and bring people to the table to understand. You're literally just causing more division. You think Jesus would just cause more division? Think Jesus wants you to cause political division? Continue to do so? You know what? To be honest with you, I just feel like something's coming down Bethel's way very soon. There's no God in these churches. God does not exist in these churches. Wealth exists in these churches. Self-promotion exists in these churches. Fame, famous pastors, famous worship leaders exist in these churches. $1 million music industry exists in these churches. God has left these churches a long time ago. A long time ago. And now it's just full of snakes. It's full of people who are tricking you into what the gospel really is and it's not. It's full of people taking your money. It's full of people not helping their communities. It's full of people who cheat on their wives. It's full of people who take your money but don't help you when you need it. The modern church is a f***ing failure. Bethel is an effing failure. Sean Feucht, you're a failure. Repent of what you've done. Sit back and say, oh shit. There's no way that this guy drives venue to venue and be like, yeah, this is a good idea. This guy knows he's spreading COVID around the world. He knows that people are going to die because of what he's doing. He should be arrested and thrown in jail. This guy should be put in jail for the rest of his life. You're going to be judged very harshly, Sean Feucht, when you get to heaven. There are going to be people that have died because of you. Can you honestly say you're cool with that? That you're like, yeah, and you know it is, and you know he knows that there are people will die because of these super spreader events. Somebody is going to die down that chain. There's 10,000 people at a super spreader event, and one person has that. That's gonna be thousands of people getting COVID. I would love to get back to the real world. I would love for my kid to be able to go to school. I'd love to be able to go to the grocery store without a mask. I'd love to do all these things. I'd love to get back to living life and not being locked down and everybody being scared. I would love that. But what you're doing is setting that back. And you could have taken the high road. It's not, you're being a toddler by saying, well, they did it, so we're going to do it. You think that's how Christians believe? And you're showing the world, because you have a huge platform, that's how Christians think. And by association, that's how Jesus thinks. That's what you're telling the world. I know this has just been a big, long rant, but I have to get this off my chest. Mega churches and famous worship pastors and everybody else lining their pockets with the money from these people. Everybody's starting to see through it. Look at go to Sean Feucht's Twitter and just look at everything. This guy can suck it. And I think other worship pastors need to step up and start calling you out. Other churches need to stop being silent on this and call assholes like this out. The church is silent on this. Call him out. He's doing something wrong. Call him out. Don't be on his side on this. You're on the wrong side of history. This is a pandemic. This isn't a political movement. It's a pandemic killing people. Do the right thing, Sean Feucht and Bethel. Stop these super spreader events. Take the high road. Let BLM and do all that stuff, and maybe in the end they'll get ratioed. Maybe they'll be called to task for that later on. But it's not your responsibility to be like, well, they did this, I'm doing it. It's not your responsibility to have a temper tantrum like a toddler and do the same thing, because you're just as bad. You're telling them they're bad for doing what they're doing, and then you go and do the same thing. Does that not strike you as odd? I'm actually starting to hate Bethel more and more every day. I don't care that I have good music, because anybody can manufacture good music with the right money. You just hire writers and do everything you want. I'm just saying, churches need to step up and stop using Bethel's music now. There has to be a political movement against Bethel now. There has to be a Christian and a church movement against Bethel now. You have to stand up and say, this is not right. What Bethel is doing is not right, and we are not going to stand with them. We can reimagine worship. We don't have to be we can do this. And a lot of churches have done this. God is not being silenced in this. Church is not being silenced. This just proves how selfish the church is. Oh, you're not allowed to open our doors so we can make money and all this stuff. It's just so selfish to me. It's so selfish because of the self-promotion. Sean Feucht, ugh. Look at what you're teaching your kids. You dirty rat. You're such a con artist. And you should be ashamed of yourself. Anyway, that's today's video, Ministry Monday. What's going on in the world right now is just nuts. The church is not supposed to be getting political. It's not. And he literally says it on his website. It's a political movement, and he works at a church. So whatever that means for their tax-free exempt status probably needs to be erased, because now they're a political movement. Because he represents Bethel, and he's got a political movement. Put two and two together. Go leave comments on Bethel's everywhere. YouTube videos. Go leave comments, Bethel's Twitter. Go leave it on their Facebook pages. Tell them what you think about Sean Feucht. You need to ratio them, and you need to put, anywhere that there's like a star rating for Bethel, go leave a 1-star rating. As many as things you can. Go to their records, go all their albums, and leave 1-star ratings. Make sure you ratio them out of existence. Not like a lot of churches will, but if you go to church, you need to lobby your church to take a stand against Bethel. You need to lobby your church to say, we're not doing Bethel music here anymore. We're not touching it. You need churches to come out and say, this is why we're not. Sean Feucht has started a political movement that has super spreader events that could be killing people, and we're not going to be a part of that. If you sing a Bethel song in your church, you're now complicit. If you go to church and your church has done a Bethel song, you make sure they know not to do that anymore. You raise your voice. You tell your church that you go to stop this. Churches need to come together and stop this a-hole before it gets bigger, because it's just getting bigger. He's just going to keep going and spreading this. Unnecessarily, people are going to die. Look, there's a risk in going into the world. I get it. There's always going to be a risk, and you got to get back to the world. But this isn't helping there yet. We're not there yet. We can't do this. And if one person unnecessarily dies because of Sean Feucht's ego and Bethel's platform, that's unacceptable to me. You don't need to go to these events. That's why. You just don't need to. You want to worship God, you can do it anywhere. You don't need to do it at these super spreader events. You can do it in the comfort of your own home. and do it with legitimacy. Again, don't forget that this is about them. Everybody standing there singing, that's about them. That's them. That's them. Has nothing to do with Jesus. Let me say that here. So anyway, lobby your church to cancel Bethel. Sean Feucht is an a-hole. Thank you for watching. Like or subscribe or don't. I don't really care. If you hit the bell, you can maybe get a thing. I don't know. Whew. I just don't like the injustice of this, and that Jesus is now roped in because they're like, look, we represent Christ. And it's just not true. They don't represent Christ, not the real Christ. Jesus would never do this. So let's just leave that there. And I will see you probably tomorrow for that big Micah video. So hopefully you stick around for that. Thank you for watching the Dad Challenge podcast. So glad you're here. I hope that you have an amazing Monday. It's still Canadian Thanksgiving. We're doing our turkey today. And I hope that you can just get out there, do what you can do to shut these people down. I don't know if we have any power to do that. Maybe we got to lobby other creators to get on this and start talking about this, because this is insane. So I will see you guys tomorrow.